It is 8:41, and Jonathan Helton is online. Jonathan, aloha and good morning to you.
Well, aloha and good morning to you as well, Rick. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you back on board, and thank you so very much. Before we start, your take, share about Grassroot Institute of Hawaii, please.
Of course, Grassroot Institute of Hawaii exists to advance the principles of economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited accountable government in Hawaii. What that basically means is we are looking for ways to make Hawaii more affordable and a better place for businesses to start and open and create good jobs for Hawaii residents. And we want to do that by looking for ways to lower your taxes and to get the government out of the way.
So in that line, the big square building is progressing. Where are we on the calendar today, Jonathan?
So we are getting to the end of all of the hearings for this year. We've got about a week and a half, 2 more weeks of committee hearings. And so bills that don't get out of their last committee during this next 10 days, they're dead for the year. After that, we have a week or two of conference committee where the Senate and the House will get together, and if they've passed bills where they disagree on the exact language, they'll go and they'll hash out those details and then send the final version to the floor for a vote. So we're almost at the end of the legislative session.
Coming up close. Sine die is May, I can't recall the date, May...
Oh, yeah, very early, May 4th, May 5th,
yeah,
somewhere in there.
Right. So the countdown is on. Fortuitous time we have together. Jonathan, in your perspective with Grassroot, what is top of mind with you in regard to bills that are still alive?
Number one thing we are monitoring is the state budget and the proposed income tax. I guess you could call it a pause. That's what they've been calling it. We like to call it they're stopping the income tax cuts. So let's talk about the budget first.
Please.
So for everyone who's listening, the Senate Committee on Ways and Means is hearing the state budget bill, HB 1800, tomorrow morning. So that's going to be a big deal because the House, they heard the budget bill a couple of weeks ago, and they made some pretty significant amendments to it. So what the House did is they took the governor's budget and they cut about $150 million from the governor's budget and then added about $195 million of their own spending to that budget bill. So right now, the state of the budget is that they're planning to add about $40 million over what the governor had asked for. So that's the bill that's going to be heard by Senate Committee on Ways and Means tomorrow morning.
Jonathan, do we have an idea of what those requests entail for additional spending?
Yes. So the governor had asked for some additional spending through some amendments. Some of those amendments have been added, but what the House has added, a lot of that money is put toward the Department of Education, the Department of Land and Natural Resources. I think what's worth pointing out in this new House version of the budget is where they've cut spending. Because normally we hear spending cut and we at Grassroot think, well, that's great. Someone is trying to reduce the size of government. But what the House has done is it has cut $150 million from planned debt service and health benefit payments. And typically, those sorts of payments are fixed cost. That is, the state has to make its debt service payments. The state has to make its health benefit payments. Otherwise, it can get into trouble if it comes up short. So are those cuts going to last? We're not sure. And if the state isn't paying off its debt service now, that just means it's going to be paying even more in debt interest in the future. So we're not really sure if those count as cuts. So what we're really looking at is that the House has really added almost $200 million in new spending to the budget bill. Amazing.
Thank you for bringing us up to speed. What else should we be aware of as this bill moves?
In our testimony on this bill, what we are recommending is that the Senate committee go back to the governor's budget. So that would save, if they simply reverted to the governor's budget, that saves about $40 million compared to the House version. We think that it's a pretty good compromise. The governor's budget does include some higher spending over last year, but it's not anything crazy. It's about $300 million. The total budget is about $10.5 billion. So it's a slight increase over last year. We think that's a good compromise. Beyond that, what Grassroot is trying to look at is how are these income tax cuts going to play out. Those bills have not gotten their final committee hearings yet, and so we expect that they will in the next week and a half. And the question is going to be, what does the final version of those bills look like when they come out of committee?
So, in essence, I want to throw a little companion in here. Whenever we have a disaster, there are all types of requests, funding, executive actions, all of this. Do we anticipate that there will be either an increase in taxation to pay for what is projected to be $1 billion plus incident with flooding, or is there the rating of a special fund, rainy day fund, etc., that's going to be contributory? But at the end of the day, will taxes increase because of the flooding around the state?
Well, it's funny that it's called a rainy day fund because it is supposed to be used for events such as this, when you have a disaster, an act of God, something completely out of control that happens, and you can dip into that. You can dip into that reserve fund for something like this. I can tell you what the governor has already proposed. So the governor, shortly after the first round of storms, sent around an updated budget request, and so this will be considered by the Senate committee tomorrow. The governor is asking for some additional funds to acquire the Wahiwa Dam. That I think the state agency just voted to acquire the dam last week. So I think they're in active negotiations there. I would expect that the governor will make another round of requested amendments to get some additional funding to help people who've been affected by the storm. But I think what is really important to keep in mind is that $1 billion number does not represent loss to the state government, right? So how much of the state facilities is a part of that $1 billion? We're not sure. So that would be something like if a road was damaged, or if the city is going to have to put in new water pipes or new sewer pipes. That would be a more direct cost to the state. For everything else, in terms of what the state is going to provide for people who have been displaced, I don't think we have a good estimate of what the actual cost is going to be. So there's going to be something new. So there's some uncertainty there. And I think the other question you alluded to, where is the state going to get the money? It could get it from raising taxes, but as Grassroot has pointed out already, there's a lot of money sitting around in special funds and vacant positions and agencies that really probably shouldn't exist. The state could skim some money from there and use it to cover any unforeseen spending increases. So lawmakers really have a lot of room to be creative in how they make up this hit to the budget from the storms.
My goodness. So I'm just internally trying to navigate what the impacts are going to be. And then I had I'll just share with you, Jonathan, and correct me if I'm wrong. I had posted a reel online early December of last year. And it was in anticipation of the elimination, now causing a pause or retracting, what have you, the tax cuts the governor had signed into law, celebrated in 24, and more and more and more. And I referred that to be a tax hike. My rationale is if you establish a tax level, which we did in 24, good for 25, but then you retract it and go to its original rate, that in fact is a tax increase. So maybe during this whole process, the nomenclature is trying to be avoided, that once again tax increases will be upon us.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right to characterize this as a tax increase. So if the governor's bill to pause, stop, whatever you call it, the tax cuts, if that were to pass, what it would do is that everybody who's gotten some savings, that savings is going to be locked in. But for the future, right, this tax cut was supposed to phase in from 2024 to 2031. There are still several years in which that relief is supposed to increase. And if any of that is taken away in some form or fashion, that represents a tax hike.
Right.
Because the current situation is that all Hawaii taxpayers are supposed to see an income tax reduction over the next 6, 7, 8 years. What's going to happen is that some portion of taxpayers, it depends on what version of the bill passes, some portion of taxpayers are going to see a tax hike.
But the rationale, Jonathan, and again, Jonathan Helton with us, from just a guy, the perspective, the targeting of those of a certain level of income. In other words, the government saying, well, you make enough, you're fine, you're going to do just fine, you don't need any more. But what's not known by some is that if you have entrepreneurs, small business, et cetera, if they utilize their personal income tax report by utilizing source of income as revenue generated by their business, that will immediately put them in a quote-unquote income bracket at the highest taxation, when in fact they still have to take care of their business and personal expenses that reduces the net amount from that gross. And it's a huge impact to those who have businesses. And again, am I correct in my assessment?
I mean, Hawaii needs more entrepreneurship, not less.
Amen.
If you look at UHERO, they've done reports, and they say, hey, not only is Hawaii expensive, it's also economically stagnant. Wages aren't growing. Well, one of the best ways for wages to grow is to make it easy for people to start a small business and then to be able to succeed. And so when the state is punishing, right, because that's what this is with a tax hike, individuals who are making $400,000, $500,000,
right.
Maybe you're a married couple and you're running a business.
Yeah.
As a business, that's not a lot of money. You are definitely a small business. And so for the state to come in and say, actually, we're going to charge you even more, I mean, with how expensive everything else is right now,
right.
That is the opposite of what the state should be doing to really help people succeed and be able to grow their income.
It's 8:54, 8:55. I got to take a break here for some business. But Jonathan, what do you recommend? How do we connect with Grassroot Institute? How do we keep up to speed? And when there's a call to action, could we look to Grassroot for the opportunity to participate in this process?
Best way to get in touch with us, go to our website, grassrootinstitute.org. Sign up for our newsletter. If you do that, when we are looking for people to testify on these bills, like we will be in a week, 2 weeks, whenever these tax hike bills get a hearing, we're going to send out an email, and we're going to direct you to our website where you can write into lawmakers. And, it takes 30 seconds, a minute to make your voice heard.
Right. Jonathan Helton, I cannot thank you enough. Next time we get together, perhaps we can take a look at the city. A lot going on there, of course. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I'm always happy to talk Hawaii policy and politics, and hope you have a good day.
Same to you, and wishing you aloha. Jonathan Helton. Wonderful. Let me take care of business, and then we'll wrap things up on this Tuesday morning.